Here is the complete story of The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. The Lottery. The morning of June 27th was clear and sunny, with the fresh warmth of a full summer day. The flowers were blossoming profusely, and the grass was richly green. The people of the village began to gather in the square, between the post office and the bank. They were all there, the whole village, and they stood around, chatting and laughing, as they waited for the lottery to begin. Mr. Summers, the lottery official, arrived in the square, carrying a black wooden box. He was a jovial man, and he greeted the villagers warmly, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries. He set the box down on a stool and began to chat with the villagers, asking about their farms and their families. The lottery was an old tradition, one that had been observed in the village for as long as anyone could remember. It was a simple ceremony, really. The villagers would gather, and Mr. Summers would draw a slip of paper from the box. The slip would have a name on it, and the person whose name was drawn would win the lottery. But as the villagers waited for the lottery to begin, there was a sense of unease in the air. It was a beautiful day, but there was something ominous about the gathering. The villagers stood around chatting and laughing, but there was an undercurrent of tension. Mr. Summers began to speak, his voice booming across the square. "Okay, folks, gather round. It's time for the lottery." He reached into the box and drew out a slip of paper. "And the winner is Tessie Hutchinson." There was a moment of stunned silence, and then the villagers began to murmur and stir. Tessie Hutchinson, a stout, loud-voiced woman, pushed her way to the front of the crowd. "I don't want to be the winner," she said, her voice shrill with protest. "I don't want to be the winner." But it was too late. The villagers had already begun to close in on her, their faces set and determined. Mr. Summers handed Tessie a small, smooth stone. "You're the winner, Tessie," he said, his voice firm but polite. "You get to go first." And with that, the villagers began to stone Tessie to death. The scene was chaotic and terrifying, with the villagers shouting and throwing stones, and Tessie screaming and trying to defend herself. As the villagers stoned Tessie, they seemed to be in a trance-like state, their faces set and determined. It was as if they had been programmed to perform this brutal act, and they were simply carrying out their instructions. The story ends with the villagers finishing their brutal task, and then calmly dispersing, as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. The Lottery is a powerful and disturbing story that explores themes of conformity, tradition, and the dangers of blindly following societal norms.